It was 1934, California. A few years into the Great Depression, writer, journalist, and socialist Upton Sinclair ran for the governorship of California and started his EPIC or End Poverty in California campaign as a Democrat. He was originally part of the Socialist Party of America but thought he could win if he ran as a Democrat. Sinclair was right because he won the Democratic primary in an overwhelming fashion against the establishment's will. Sinclair's campaign grew as hundreds of EPIC clubs formed around his movement. His book I, Governor of California and How I Ended Poverty, a True Story of the Future, which detailed his plan for California, was the fastest selling book in California, and he gained grassroots support in the form of small money donations. The EPIC plan was a radical one, with the idea to eliminate production for profit, which had brought about the Great Depression in the first place, and replace it with production for use. Specifically, the plan called for state seizure of idle factories and farmland where the owner had failed to pay property taxes. The government would then hire the unemployed to work on these farms and factories. The farms and the factories would then go on to operate as self-sufficient worker-run cooperatives, with land being held communally. These workers' cooperatives would then barter with one another and would take some state directive on production. EPIC also called for the implementation of California's first state income tax. The tax was to be progressive, with the wealthiest being taxed at 30%. The plan would also have increased inheritance taxes and instituted a 4% tax on stock transfers. EPIC also included government-provided pensions for the old, disabled, and widowed. To implement EPIC, Sinclair called for the creation of 3 new government agencies: the California Authority for Land, CAL, the California Authority for Production, and the California Authority for Money. CAL was to implement the plan for seizure and cultivation of unused farmland. CAT was to do the same for idle factories. CAM, meanwhile, was to be used to finance CAL and CAT by issuing scrip to workers and issuing bonds for the purchase of lands and factories and machinery. EPIC faced major opposition by the Republican Party and major media figures. Opponents of EPIC organized a mudslinging campaign, one that was to become a landmark in American politics, involving turning over a major campaign to outside advertising, media, and fundraising consultants for the first time. Notable among these opponents were the heads of major movie studios in Hollywood. This was largely due to Sinclair's proposal to hand over idle movie studio lots to unemployed film workers to make movies of their own. The studio heads threatened to move to film operations to Florida and deducted money from employees' paychecks to give directly to the campaign of Sinclair's Republican opponent, Frank Merriam. In addition, 2 of the state's most influential media moguls, William Randolph Hearst and Harry Chandler, used their papers to solely cover Merriam's campaign and to attack Sinclair. Faced with overwhelming opposition and an insurgent progressive party, Sinclair lost with 37.8% of the votes, while his main opponent, Merriam, got 48.9%. Despite his loss, Sinclair's EPIC movement is credited with moving the New Deal to the left.